Good evening, everybody. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Von Rudenberg,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Canestrino.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Sims,
Here.
Councilmember Pataglia.
Here.
Mayor LaBrus.
Here.
This meeting is being held in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act, NJSA 10:4-6 et sec. Notice having been published according to law with a copy on file in the city clerk's office and a copy posted on the bulletin board in City Hall. Pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act and recent regulations issued by the state of New Jersey, the following procedures will be in effect for public comment during this remote public meeting of the City Council. The public shall have an opportunity for comment during the designated public portion of this meeting. The time period for public comment is limited to 3 minutes for each speaker, and no person may address the council more than once, except for speaking during an advertised public hearing for an ordinance. At the time designated for public comment, the mayor or other presiding officer of the council will recognize one speaker at a time. That speaker must identify himself or herself by full name and whether or not he or she resides in Hackensack. No other member of the public is permitted to speak unless recognized by the presiding officer, and other remote attendees may be muted during that time if necessary to eliminate background noise. Meeting attendees shall exhibit appropriate demeanor during this meeting as required by Section 37-15 of the City Code. In the event any member of the public becomes disruptive at any time, that individual may be muted by the presiding officer and will receive a warning that continued disruption may result in being prevented from speaking or removed from the meeting entirely. The Zoom meeting platform has a texting function. However, this is to be used only for the purpose of advising the city's IT staff of any technical concerns or issues. The public may also submit written public comments to be audibly read into the record by the city clerk during the public portion of any remote public meeting of the City Council. Comments can be submitted by regular mail or by email to asaby@hackensack.org. Comments received less than 5 hours before the start of a meeting may be carried to the next meeting. Any person who actually speaks during the public comment portion of a remote public meeting may not also have a comment read into the record. The city clerk will stop reading a written comment into the public record once it reaches the 3-minute limit. Duplicate written comments may be summarized and noted for the record in a consistent manner.
That's it. Okay, thank you. Would everybody please rise for the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and
to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible,
with
with
liberty.
liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we'll go right into the agenda. Ted?
Yes, sir, Mayor. This is the Committee of the Whole agenda for March 23rd, 2021. First, we have a presentation from the Garden Club for recreational center planning proposal. And Laura Lee is going to present. Laura Lee, are you on the line?
I believe it's Lorelei.
I'm sorry, Lorelei. I'm sorry.
Lorelei, are you on the line? Unmute yourself. Frank, do you see her?
I'm looking through the participants. I'm not seeing her in the waiting room, or I'm not in the waiting room, in the lobby, the audience.
I'm wondering if she's thinking it's at the next meeting.
Howard, you got something to say? Frank, is Gary there?
Gary is there yet.
Talk to him.
Gary?
Mute.
Hi, my wife Edith is here. She's part of the committee to improve some of the landscaping at the M&M building. That's the presentation tonight. Lorelei Kaminsky was supposed to. I don't know if something happened, but I'll ask. You can ask Edith if she'll fill us in on the committee on what they came up with, if that's okay, just to keep the meeting moving along.
That would be fine.
Thanks, Gary.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, I spoke with Lorelei earlier today, and she is prepared to do a PowerPoint presentation for the committee. our little group put it together for you to try to give you an overview of what we're all about. I'm not really prepared to do her talking for her, but I'll do the best I can.
Edith, would it help
Do you
if,
have a cell phone number for her that we could reach out? I'm happy to call while you're going forward with the meeting.
You want to move
Check
on?
my
Can we
phone
move on
for
with
her.
the other
I'm
things on
wondering
the agenda?
if she doesn't have, a little bit of trouble maybe logging in. I don't know.
Because I would give you my email. You could email me a cell phone if you don't, and I can just call her. Obviously, I don't want to say it in front of everybody, but
The Zoom info was sent to her.
Or you can put it in the
Yeah,
chat. so
she
Steve can
confirmed
follow.
with everybody, so I'm a little bit surprised that, she's not on
why don't we
already
give her,
prepared
and
to
we can
go.
move, we can move forward with presentation.
I'll go to the next one. Is Suburban on this line?
Or we could do Suburban.
Yes, Ted, we're here.
Okay, Aaron. I thought you were on vacation, but apparently you're not.
No,
So-
I'm here.
All right. Aaron, as always, from Suburban, is going to speak to us about the Clay Street Culvert public hearing by Suburban Engineering. Take it away, Aaron.
Okay,
Thanks,
one
Ted.
second. I'm sorry, before you begin, Aaron, let's just make sure that Edith Terzano is aware that we're going to come back and do her presentation. Hopefully Lorelei will be ready or on by then, and then we can move forward from that point. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Aaron.
Yeah, no problem. So for anyone that doesn't know me, my name is Erin Abla and I'm with Suburban Consulting Engineers. I also have Christine Vaquero with me tonight, who's helped me prepare this presentation and is overseeing this project. We're here to discuss a project that I've presented on a few times already, but the purpose of this presentation is different. And I just want to give you a little overview on that. The funding source for this project, which is known as the Clay Street Project, is through the NJDEP, Department of Environmental Protection's Clean Water State Revolving Fund, through their CSO abatement program. This is the funding that we've discussed previously that's providing the city with $2 million of principal forgiveness, so the free money that we've talked about previously. This funding requires that an environmental review is performed for every project that applies for it. So as part of the application for this funding process, we had to create a environmental planning document. They review that and then they decide what level it is. Due to some of the improvements that are proposed as part of this project, which namely is the new outfall through Foschini Park and that being upsized, we are a level 2. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but that's what's mandating this as an actual public hearing. So the DEP requires us to go forward and share this information with you. Again, I know you've heard about this project before, so I just wanted to be clear on why we're sharing this information. We've put together a slideshow to help convey this information, so I'm going to get right into it. So as a reminder, the city of Hackensack is a combined sewer community. There are 2 combined sewer drainage areas within the city, Anderson Street and Court Street. As part of the city's long-term control plan, there are 2 strategies that the city could, or 2 goals that the city has to achieve, and they're listed here. It's decrease the combined sewer overflow to 4 occurrences per year, or to achieve 85% capture. So again, for the capture requirement, when you look at overall volume of storms that are contributory to a combined sewer system, over a year, only 15% of that volume can be discharged to the river. So those are our goals. Additionally, as you all know, the city has committed to address flooding and surcharging to help protect their residents and their property owners from flood damages from regular storm events to the greatest extent possible. So that's something that's outside the long-term control plan, but it's also a goal of the city. Where we exist today, so the existing condition and how we're doing towards these goals. You could see that the combined sewer overflows for 2020 were 65 events. So we finished that analysis, 65 overflow events occurred. Remember, we want to get that down to 4. And we're still having surcharging, right? So we're working towards these goals, and this project addresses both of these. Sewer separation is one of the identified ways to reduce the overflows and to reduce the surcharging that we're seeing. The project that we're talking about just on this overview map before we get going, we call it the Clay Street area. It's beyond just Clay Street. It's really the region that is northwest of the rail intersection at Central and Railroad Ave. So it's this area all up in here that we see. You'll also notice that this is where Court Street and Anderson Street combined sewer areas intersect. So there's a wide range of improvements and mitigation that we're going to be performing. And this is the area we're trying to address as part of this project. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Christine to talk a little bit more about the planning area and the project area.
Okay, so the planning area shown on this map is outlined in black. Everything within this black box was addressed in our planning document submitted to the DEP. It's made up of two separate areas, a downstream area closer to the river near Foschini Park. And then you see that box closes and there's an upstream area, a separate black box with some upstream sewer separation improvements. There's a gap between the two areas. That gap represents the area that the city has already completed under the Main Street sewer separation project. And we will tie this upstream black box into the Main Street sewer improvements, and that all eventually goes through the downstream area and into the river. The planning document that we submitted addresses an overall inventory of all of the environmental features within this planning area. And it also includes an analysis of environmental and social and economic impacts the project has on any of those resources within the planning area limits, and also a relationship of the impacts to the benefits and an alternatives analysis. So it's an extensive report that was also posted along with this meeting link and provided to the DEP. To date, the DEP has finished their review of this report, and this public hearing is the last element of their review, the Municipal Finance Department of the DEP. The project area is shown in yellow. So all of the yellow areas are enclosed within this black box. The difference between the black and the yellow is the yellow is the areas proposed to be disturbed during construction. So the black is the area that the DEP evaluated as far as environmental, historic impacts, but the areas that we're proposing right now to actually open up during construction and install improvements are within these yellow shaded areas. The North-South New Jersey Transit Railroad divides the upstream planning area about in half. All of the improvements east of the railroad are just about designed and pending approval from the DEP, and will probably stay as you see them here. The improvements west of the railroad may not look exactly how you're seeing them here, pending final design and analysis. The goal is to maximize the amount of drainage area we can take out, and in finalizing that design, the yellow west of the rail may change slightly, but any changes will not have any impact to the funding or any of the elements of this presentation, and they will remain within the black box. Like Erin mentioned briefly a little bit earlier, we went through the same program for the Main Street Sewer Separation Project, but a public hearing was not required. The upstream impacts or the upstream project area is similar to what was done for Main Street, but that red circle downstream shows the improvements to the outfall. Because we are increasing the quantity of flow to that existing outfall, the planning document is bumped up from a level 1 to a level 2, and a level 2 requires a public hearing. So that outfall is on a lot adjacent to Foschini Park, and it will pass through Foschini Park. There is an existing outfall there now that the Main Street improvements connect into. We're just bringing that additional yellow area upstream there. So it needs to be upsized and to increase capacity to account for those additional areas.
Okay.
And then we have the proposed conditions here. There's a few pictures from the Main Street installation of the box culvert. This red area is also the Main Street improvements that we discussed. This project will just build on those Main Street improvements and move west. So the goal of this project was to remove drainage areas from the Court Street combined sewer separation and combined sewer system, and redirect the same drainage areas to that existing outfall in Foschini Park. So it would take the stormwater flows out of the combined system that is over capacity and redirect them to a different location. In deciding the project limits, the two goals were to maximize the amount of stormwater flow to be removed from the combined sewer system, which has an impact on the overflows that Aaron discussed earlier, which is a condition of the long-term control plan. The second was the impact on the surcharging, or that localized flooding that Aaron mentioned is a goal of the cities. So this project, the goal was to maximize both, maximize reducing the flooding and also reducing the stormwater that goes to the, that contributes to the overflows. Overall, the public impacts to the project, will start with the environmental impacts. There are no permanent adverse environmental impacts. They're all temporary impacts and caused by construction, and they will be limited to the greatest extent possible. So just to start, the overall positive impacts of the project are what we discussed on the previous slide, decreasing the total stormwater volumes that are in the combined sewer system to help the overflows and the flooding. And then water quality improvements, the stormwater that gets treated in the new system will be treated to water quality standards in accordance with state regulations. The temporary impacts include some temporary environmental impacts at the outfall. We have prepared a mitigation plan, and it's currently under review by the Land Use Department of the Department of Environmental Protection. Additionally, during construction, with any disturbance, you'll have some soil movement or soil erosion. This project will also be required to submit an application and get approval from the Bergen County Soil Conservation District. And then upon that approval, get a separate permit from the DEP for a construction activity over 1 acre called a 5G3 permit. Some social and economic public impacts. So as we discussed earlier, the city is required to take remedial action in accordance with the long-term control plan to mitigate adverse effects of combined sewer overflows. So not taking any action is not really an option. The selected option that we were going with for this project is subject to funding from the New Jersey Infrastructure Bank and is an efficient and economical option to address both the adverse effects of the combined sewer overflows and the combined sewer system surcharging or flooding. This has the same positive impacts as discussed under the environmental side, in that it helps reduce those same overflows and improve the flooding. The different temporary impacts are during construction, which include noise and traffic. Noise will be limited from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. weekdays and 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. weekends, and will only be permitted otherwise to mitigate other public impacts. Traffic, obviously there will be detours due to construction. The intent is to mitigate that to the greatest extent possible and limit interruptions to traffic. And Foschini Park will remain open. The other parts of the park will remain open during construction as a requirement by Green Acres. So lastly, we have a list of all of the permits required for the entire project area. First, we have approval from the New Jersey Environmental Infrastructure Project, which is the municipal finance department that gives that $2 million funding. Second is another department of the DEP, the Land Resource Protection Group, that will review for, or is reviewing for, flood hazard area and waterfront development. And that is related to the outfall only at the Hackensack River. Army Corps of Engineers nationwide permit number 7 is also related just to that outfall at the river. And then we discussed a slide earlier, Bergen County Soil Conservation District and the DEP's construction activity permit. That's all related to soil disturbance during construction. The Department of Environmental Protection also has a treatment works approval application that will be submitted, has been submitted for the upstream areas. So those areas west of the Main Street improvements, and that's for new sanitary lines associated with the sewer separation. Lastly is the New Jersey Transit occupancy permit for the pipe that will cross under the New Jersey Transit Railroad, connecting those eastern improvements with improvements west of the railroad.
So that's all we had, and that was what was required to be covered as part of this funding program. Are there any questions?
Yes. The $2 million of forgiveness, will $2 million cover this project?
No, $2 million will not cover this project. And to receive the $2 million, you have to spend $4 million, right? So it's a 50% match. We are working on the estimate for this first phase of the project. It'll be in multiple phases, and we will be exceeding the $4 million that's required to capitalize on that $2 million. The remainder of the project will be funded through the iBank at very low interest rates.
So Aaron, is this a 2021 or is this a 2020? This has not been designed, yes?
This has been designed. So
okay.
our goal in this public hearing is to get an environmental decision document from the DEP that will allow us to go out to bid. So as long as that process runs smooth, we should be out to bid in the next few weeks here.
So does Jim know that this is coming?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm gonna sleep.
You want me to speak to the financing for a minute?
Sure,
Wait, can I just say something real quick, Jim?
sure.
Aaron, what's the overall time for this project?
I'm sorry, did you say Jim or Aaron?
Aaron,
Okay.
the
Yep.
time, how much time will this project be?
The construction time frame or just all phases? So let me go back to the map. I think this will help, Deputy Mayor. Nope, I skipped it, I'm sorry. So the first phase and what we're proposing is actually to continue the work you've done on Main Street, and what's going to go out to bid is continuing up Camden and getting us closer to get up by the rail. We're not going to cross the rail as part of this first project. So this is all proposed to get started. We're going to get right up to the railroad and then also do this piece. This piece is required for us to start connecting anything else west of the rail. So these are the first two phases that we have designed that are ready to go. That would go out to bid as soon as, you know, the next few weeks this first phase would. That would continue to be constructed throughout this year. The next section is not designed yet, and we don't have a construction schedule approved by the city or the, you know, the design plans even to proceed with that discussion. So
Okay,
2021 is everything east of the rail.
So basically, James Street, Berry Street, Stanley Place will still flood then. Is that what you're saying?
Throughout 2021?
Yes.
Yeah, we are working to get up over through the rail. We did just receive some correspondence from transit. So that was one of the long lead items, but looks like we can move on that. So we will be evaluating if we cross the rail sooner than projected, but that's nothing that we've presented to the city yet.
Just to be clear though, Aaron, even if you started on the other side of the tracks, it's still going to flood because it's not going to be hooked up because there would be no work on the east side of the tracks, correct?
Correct. We need to run this substantial infrastructure up to get under the rail to connect to the other side. And that's why we're having this public hearing, because we need this downstream. We need this to be upsized. I think it's important to note the infrastructure within Foschini Park, servicing Foschini Park and draining Foschini, is not being impacted. This is a separate line that's going to run parallel to it. But we need a substantial increase in the capacity for both storage is something that this will achieve, and also the conveyance. But Deputy Mayor, to answer your question, no, we need to install this all first before we can get under the rail. But we are designing it to impact all of those roads and to drain all of those roads that you just mentioned.
So you got certain roads highlighted, but James, Berry, Stanley Place are not highlighted. What does that mean?
So really the yellow, anything west of the rail that's in yellow doesn't really mean much, because we haven't submitted that design to the city or to the DEP yet. What we've talked to the DEP and the city about is we need to continue, and we're getting there on the analysis for this section. Our goal is to drain this area, that ponds that's, right in this quadrant. We want to drain this area. All of this is contributory to this system. So we want to make sure that we pick the improvements that are going to make the biggest impact on that. And I'll tell you now, I do not believe what is shown in yellow will be the design. I actually think we're going to be grabbing higher areas so they don't flow into this low-lying area and surcharge it. But that's something we're working on designing now. So we had to show this because this is what we originally submitted. So this process, you submit to DEP for this grant early before you design. And you say, this is the area I want to impact. This is why. This is what we're going to do. And then you have to look at it and you have to come up with this yellow area that is a proposed project area, but it's before you design anything. So it's really a best guess at the time of application. And this was kind of our best guess. What would have the biggest impact on this black outlined area? And that's what we were trying to achieve. But by no means does the yellow represent the only project area and what the project area will look like west of the rail.
So you're talking maybe 2023 on that Berry Street, James Street, Stanley Place.
I'm hopeful. I don't have it designed and I haven't presented it to the city yet. But I'm hopeful that it will be, one after the other. So as soon as we can get it designed and we can get that information to the city and the finances, then we could look at that schedule. But no, I don't think that this would go to 2023. But that's something that we need to present to the city. There's no reason it can't go right after this one. Like I said, we just have to get this installed first. And that was the focus of our design. So now we're going to revisit and say, okay, what's the most impact in this upstream drainage area?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Erin, this is Kathy. Just a couple quick points. So what we're looking at in 2021, so where we're going from the railway and going east and eventually getting down through Foschini Park to the river. Any of those yellow areas that are east again of the rail that you're looking at doing work on, will there be any improvements there? Will those streets be connected to this new outflow or not?
Yeah, so we're going to be performing, and it varies per street, but there will be sewer separation within these streets and some of these streets, and it's required to afford the room for a large box culvert to get up there. So yes, there are improvements that are going on. We are continuing to collect data in those areas as well. CCTV, I'm sure any of the residents that live within this area, you've seen this ongoing to see just the extent of the work that has to be considered. So we're continuing to do that. But yes, you're going to see work that involves sewer separation within these streets within the yellow area.
I just think it's important to note that, the goal is, yes, to get to the lowest lying areas, and to do those areas, as the mayor said, without a path to the river, will accomplish absolutely nothing. The water will have no place to go. So we have to get the water to the river. But while we're doing that, and what's going to get done this year, in that path, we will see improvements in those areas as well.
Correct. Yep, that's
Okay.
true.
And then the other point that I think we need to make also is the areas that are now west of the rail that you have highlighted in yellow. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we looked at those areas because they were the lowest lying.
Correct. If we look back at that map that shows the topography, those are the lowest lying areas.
Correct. Not that other streets won't be done, as Deputy Mayor Sims had asked, but the reason they're highlighted is initially when we were going through what are the biggest problems in Hackensack, where are the lowest lying areas where water is pooling, it was there, and it was Green Street. And, you know, Green Street is next on our list after we finish this whole particular area, or maybe even be able to do some of this stuff in parallel. Wouldn't that be wonderful? But, you know, at least for now, I think it's worth the public understanding that the reason they are highlighted is because they were lower level areas than the other streets. And not that we're not going to address those other streets as well, but that even just solving this particular problem will help, because the water will be flowing in a much better direction once this connection is made, correct?
Correct. We took as our application, our best guess, and we took the lowest lying areas. You hit the nail on the head with that. But as we're continuing to evaluate, that's not always the best solution. We could use elevation to our advantage. So that's why they're modifying a bit. But the goal is, again, I can't convey this enough. The goal is to look at this whole area. The black area is really what we're trying to accomplish and drain. And that's what we've continued to review. It's just what's the most effective way to do that. And sometimes it's not going to be infrastructure. So if we are looking to address, let's say, Berry, it's not always infrastructure on Berry that's going to best address that. And that's you know what our job is now, to identify that for the city, to design that for the city, to present that to you all, and that will be forthcoming.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Aaron, can you send me this map or this presentation, or?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Aaron, are you done?
I'm done, as long as there's no more questions.
Jim, do you want to comment?
Yeah, sure. I'll jump in. See, in terms of the financing, one thing that you have to remember is that in order for us to get this project done, now, obviously, we all wish that we could just go right after the flooding in the worst areas and take care of that. But two things, you know, first, that approach has been tried in Hackensack in the past. And you got to remember, when you go after a flooding problem like that, you don't fix the problem, you just move it to another area, you know? So it has to be done in a particular order, or else you're not fixing a problem, you're just moving it to another location. That's the first thing. Second thing is, in order for us to be able to afford to do this, we're using the iBank financing, and the financing is geared for separating the sewers, like Aaron said, for reducing the number of outfalls down to 4. Okay, now what we're doing is we're piggybacking on that, you know, that available financing, and we're doing that. We have to. Okay, but then we want to take it a step further and use it to try and alleviate flooding in all different areas. Now, a lot of times, you know, we've done this. We've talked about the $2 million in principal forgiveness, and $2 million in principal forgiveness is great. But you got to remember, it's the rest of it is funded by the city. You know, that is on our dime, you know. So it's up to us in the administration to come up with a way of being able to afford the rest of it, okay? And that's why things like this haven't happened in the past. You know, the problem with flooding in the Clay Street area wasn't ignored by prior administrations. They looked at it, they studied it. They didn't do anything about it because they couldn't figure out how to pay for it, okay? But it wasn't ignored, you know? The difference with us is we figured out a way that we're gonna be able to pay for it. So by using the iBank, it's not just the principal forgiveness, that's one part. It's the low interest part. The low interest portion of the loan is another component. The low interest part of the loan is another component. But one of the biggest components is that for the sewer separation work, we're able to spread these payments over 40 years. And that's important because the useful life of a sewer system like this, well, the sewer system right now is probably 100 years old, if I had to guess, you know. What all of that does is that makes this project affordable. And when I say affordable, what I mean is in terms of the way we've discussed other capital projects in Hackensack. We have no intentions on raising taxes to get this project done. It will be completed. It's for the number of years it's going to take. within our existing debt service budget. Okay, it does still fit in the parameters that we set up way back in 2015. You know, the plan is that, yeah, we're gonna get $2 million in principal forgiveness, and we're gonna be able to pay off these loans, and we're gonna be able to do it within the debt service budget that we currently have right now with no increase. That's the plan on the financial side. You know, now on the quality of life side, and every time I do a budget presentation, I'll be doing it next meeting, you know, I'll talk about quality of life, but you got to remember that flooding is a horrible quality of life issue. What some of the people in the Clay Street area have been putting up with in flooding is terrible. It's not just a matter of it rains and you get rainwater in your basement. That's not so bad. For some of these households, when it rains, they get rainwater mixed with sanitary waste. That has to be addressed. Okay, so it's definitely a project that's worth it. I'm excited about it because to me, it's a way that we can actually improve the quality of life, and we can do it in a way without increasing taxes, which is what we've been trying to accomplish for the last couple of years. And I'll get off my soapbox now.
Well, if the garden club has not signed on, maybe it's time for you to climb back up and make your comments. I can excuse Aaron and Christine, and you could do your, oh,
Aaron, you do have to open this.
never mind, you've been trumped, Jim. You gotta wait your turn.
Yeah.
Have
Excuse
to be open
me.
to the public, right?
Yeah,
Aaron,
Yes, I'm still
Aaron?
here.
thank you so much for your presentation, you and Christine, and we thank you for your time, and we will speak soon.
I think you have to open this to the public, don't you, Aaron, since this was the public hearing?
Yes, I believe so.
Sorry, jumped the gun.
I need a
Sorry,
motion-
Ted.
Motion to open to the public, please.
Offer.
Second,
In favor?
aye.
Unopposed? Anybody from the public who'd like to speak to the public hearing we just heard regarding the storm sewer separation project going forward?
yes. I am the resident and stakeholder here on Stanley Place. I am one of those that have made a lot of complaints about the flooding here. I know you guys are going to start working on Clay Street, and I hear Mr. Jim talk about the flooding on Clay Street, but he does not even understand the river that grows here on Stanley Place as well because of the flooding. So with you not starting the work up on top and you're on bottom, we are going to get, if it does flood, and I'm praying that it never does, as long as the city manager keeps the drain basins clean and these down inside the manholes clean, we should not have such a problem. But if that the case be, the flood waters will flood here. And the sewer system will also, like Jim said, we do get that sewer water here. How much of that will impact us up here because you will be draining down there? So how much of this water will be impacted on the top because you'll be starting on the bottom?
Is Aaron, you're still here. Can you answer that, please?
Yeah, I'm still here. So I guess, the answer is for now, the city is committed. We are looking now at additional CCTV areas. I'm not sure if you've spoke recently to the licensed operator, but we are looking at that, Mrs. Recker. So that area will be cleaned, looked at, reviewed to make sure that we understand the full scope of improvements when we get to that side. So we're continuing to plan that effort. But right now, I think that will only improve it. I don't see that there's going to be any detrimental impacts as part of that work. I think it will only be an improvement. But until we get across the rail, we will not have the solution in place. This is a necessary step to get up there, as you know, and that's what we're working on. And we are working diligently to plan that next area. And so we will, I'm sure you'll be hearing about that very soon. But we're committed to looking at that area for cleaning and moving this forward.
Okay, well, long as the city manager, make sure that the DPW do their part in their job of cleaning the basins on each of these corners and stuff, keeping them clean of the garbage and the leaves and everything. Like I said, it has rained, but it hasn't rained where it's raining, coming up from the basement. So we've been pretty good. They've been pretty good on their part, and if they continue to do their part, we won't have, we shouldn't have any occurrences.
So for the record, I just checked with the supervisor of the jet truck that we take care of these basins, and we're up to 160 basins cleaned.
Okay.
I understand the predicament and certainly the conditions that Jim has described, and we're on it. And if
Okay.
there's any concerns at all that you have, that you think that these are not being cleaned or something else has come up, because obviously you live there, you see, if somebody dumps something or if there's a blockage, just contact my office and we'll take care of it immediately.
I mean, it used to be years ago, there used to be, when the restaurant was open here on the corner, there used to be receptacles, out there for the trash, where people could pass by and just throw trash in. But that was taken away years ago, I believe after the restaurant closed. So like I said, those bottles and cans and all of that paperwork ends up in that sewer system, Ted. So that's where I'm saying impacted with the leaves and stuff.
Understood.
Yeah, so that's where I'm just concerned about the trash that ends up there, and then it blocks the flow of the water going into the basins.
The other thing that we're going to look into, and we've done this in the past and will continue, is to put those new style grates that don't leave that open. So every Pepsi bottle and can washes down in the storm drain, just the water goes like a
Right.
gutter guard.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yep.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rucker. Anybody else from the public?
Peter Marcus, Davis Avenue. I sympathize with Bridget and Carolyn and all those people in Stanley Place with the issues they deal with. I'm curious to know with this outflow into the river, how is that below high tide on the river? How do you get outflow when the ground is below the river level? I mean, I'm curious to know how that works.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So there are tide valves that are on this that protect the system from not taking in any river water, right? When there is a high tide situation, you'll see that a lot, and they're on a lot of the outflows the city already has. So we're going to prevent any of the Hackensack River from coming back into the system, but this is why this system is so large. We do have to account for the fluctuation in tide. In low tide, it will be more of a conveyance. In high tide, there's going to be a lot more storage within this pipe. But that's something we had to consider within our model, that at times there's going to be a portion of this pipe that is blocked by the tide.
Thank you very much. And again, the conveyance and the holding obviously is very, very important. And all the capacity, of course, will obviously being built from the bottom up will accommodate all of the west of the tracks as well. Eventually, we're not going to build something that's going to outlive its usefulness once we jump to the north side, or I should say the upside of the tracks. So thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Pete. Anybody else from the public like to speak? Hearing none, motion to close to the public.
Offer.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so now let's see if Lorelei is available.
I am. Thank you, Mayor. I apologize.
I think you're in the car.
Yeah, my COVID
Not
brain.
driving.
I'm sorry?
I hope you're not driving while you're Zooming.
No, I'm not. But my COVID brain had this at 7 o'clock, and that's been happening a lot lately. But I appreciate, I'm going to get through this quickly. If Jenny Lynn can share our PowerPoint, I'll be able to just go through it with you. What we're going to be doing is the Garden Club of Hackensack was formed in May, and we actually had our first meeting in June, on June 25th of 2020 during COVID. Actually, I remember that date because that's the date my granddaughter was born. But the club has come around. We had a really good season in the community garden, and we would like to present to you today. This will be our third project. So we are a 501c3. We do try to do education, programs, workshops, etc. And we are trying to enhance the appearance of the community and preserve the environment. We did two projects. One was planting the flower pots at the signs coming in from Route 4 and the Dillard Street Bridge. And we did one where the pollinator garden was started with Jenny Lynn Brown and the Girl Scout troop. So we have two projects under our belt. We're looking to do this project as our third one.
Okay.
All right, we got a grant from the Plant America Community Project. We are a member of the Garden Club of New Jersey, which provides us with liability insurance. So if we do any work around town, we are covered with liability. This is also sponsored under the National Garden Club. So we have some recognition now, not only in the state, but nationwide. The grant, oh, let me just, Jenny, go back one. The grant was actually awarded. We proposed that we wanted to beautify the entrance to the M&M building and also plant 3 fruit-bearing trees in the community garden so that we can donate fruit to the local food banks.
Okay.
All right, we're going to enhance the current landscape at the recreation center. We're not trying to change the landscape. We just want to kind of bring it up. We want to plant some perennial color, get some blue and gold in there and make it, you know, kind of more attractive from a color standpoint, and put in 1 holly just to fill in the empty corner of the building. We have some pictures here. These were the ones where we actually did an inspection of the site. This goes from left to right on the building. On the far left, you see that little patch of snow. We see all the little shrubs that are growing with the ground cover. There's a juniper there. We have the empty space where the holly will go. And then there's a little out in the parking lot where we'd like to put maybe a rose.
That's it.
Okay, my daughter was a good photoshopper here. So when you look at these now, this would be in the top left. It would be where we put a rose shrub and some hydrangea, and all the color is the yellow daylilies, clematis, etc. All perennial, low maintenance. We don't have to really do much. The city doesn't have to do much in maintaining it. There's our holly tree, and to the right on the bottom, a rose shrub and a hydrangea.
Very nice.
Okay, so the proposed date, we want to start in early April, which is coming up soon. We need to order our plants. We will staff the volunteers from the club. The materials and supplies will be provided by us. The only thing we would require from the city is that the DPW would help us dig the hole for the American holly.
And would you do that on a weekend, or is that through the week?
It could be during the week or on a weekend, whichever works for the DPW.
All right. If you could just send me an email with some dates with your plan, I'll get someone assigned to that project.
That's great, Ted. I think we just, you know, we have to get your permission first. We need to order the plants, and then we'll pick a date.
Well, I don't hear anybody from the council saying, no, this is a bad idea. So my guess is, unless the mayor jumps in front of me, we'll certainly approve this, and we appreciate your hard work and beautification of the M&M building.
Okay, and these trees are the trees that would be planted on the west end of the community garden. So we can move from there, Jenny, and just show up the wrap up here. The community project, yeah, would just be putting in the apples. Again, we would need a DPW to dig 3 holes there for the apple trees. We would provide all the rest. There's a budget on the next slide, which shows you all our supplies that we need to buy. We have $1,700, which includes $1,000 from the grant and $700 that the club is fundraising for. So we would have the $1,700. There is no money outlay from the city.
That's awesome.
That's it. That's us. That's the building. And we hope to put some color on it.
Great job. And I want to thank the Garden Club Hackensack. You've done a wonderful presentation, and we really appreciate your work and helping Hackensack look greener, that's for sure. So
Okay.
Between the community gardens, you guys are doing a great job. Appreciate it. Thank
We look for continued support. Thank you, Mayor.
you. Thank you.
Beautiful
Any-
job. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
All right. Are there any questions or no? We're good?
I think you're good.
All right.
You're all
We're
good.
very impressed, Lorelei. You did a great job, and we're looking forward to seeing it.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathy. All right. Take care, guys.
Bye.
Take care. Say hi to Ray. Okay, we have 1 minute. Jim, can you do the 1 minute?
Yeah, about 1 minute.
Giving another 5.
Okay, just quickly, At the business portion of tonight's meeting, we will be introducing the 2021 municipal budget. So if I could just go through quickly, just some of the housekeeping aspects of it. The budget will be introduced tonight by law. We have to have a public hearing that can't be less than 28 days from today. So the public hearing will be scheduled for the April 20th council meeting, which is exactly 28 days from today at 7 o'clock. Copies of the budget will be available on the city website tomorrow. And at the next meeting, at the April 6th meeting, I'll be doing the PowerPoint presentation on the entire budget, talking about the proposed tax rate, things like that. Briefly, what the budget looks like. The budget is $110,208,769. Now that is a $996,000 increase in spending from last year, which is less than 1%. It's about 0.9%. Okay. For the third year in a row, we are projecting no increase in municipal taxes. In fact, another decrease to the municipal levy to take the pressure off the open space tax that went into effect back in 2018. Okay, at the presentation of the budget at the next meeting, I'll get into more details about that, and I'll be talking about where the increases in spending are, where the decreases in spending are. And if I could just say one thing, this particular budget, 2021 budget, probably the most difficult budget that I've had to deal with, in my time here in Hackensack, and that's because of COVID-19. Remember, a budget is really nothing more than our best educated guess. The problem with COVID is it throws a monkey wrench into everything. The 2021 budget has to be able to accommodate the programs that we want to do in the event that the pandemic ends very soon. But at the same time, we don't want to budget for things that we're not going to be spending money on if the pandemic were to continue. It's a really, really difficult juggling act for this particular budget, but the budget does work. To me, it has the flexibility that if we do want to do the programs later on, we'll have the funding for it. And if we don't do the programs, we have the flexibility where we're not increasing the taxes for it. It's a budget that I'm very proud of because it was an awful lot of work. But again, at the next meeting, April 6th, will be the full presentation on it. And then the public hearing will be at the subsequent meeting on April 20th. And one more time, the copies of the budget will be available on the city website starting tomorrow. About a minute and a half, Mayor, I think, but maybe not.
You did very well. I'm impressed. Thanks, Jim. Any questions from the council?
No.
No. Okay. Thank you, Jim. Okay. Anything else, Ted?
No, sir.
Right. Okay.
So we're all going to jump onto the other meeting.
Well, Mayor,
Well,
do you need to open to the public for this meeting?
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Unless Steve?
Yeah, I mean, look, technically this is a separate meeting, and technically any meeting of the city council does require an opportunity for the public to be heard. So my recommendation would be to do that. And I would just ask that members of the public who wish to speak be reminded that they'll have another opportunity to speak again at the meeting, and perhaps to expedite it as much as possible, since we are running quite a bit behind and we have a pretty big agenda. So they have their 3 minutes, but I think we can ask for some mercy in terms of, getting through it as quickly as we possibly can, in case there's anybody else, waiting for this meeting to start at 7 o'clock.
A motion to open to the public, please.
Offer.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, I'm going to open to the public. I asked that, as you can see, we are behind schedule. We have to open the 7 o'clock meeting ASAP. But if you would like to speak, now would be the time. You have a 2-minute limit. Please give your name to the clerk.
Hello, this
Richard
is
Falcon.
Nelson Aponte. May I speak, please?
Yes, what's the name, sir?
Nelson Aponte. I'm a homeowner in Hackensack. Good evening, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, you're on.
Mr. Mayor, I'm interested in the restrictions on the parking that are going to be taking place on Anderson Street, in particular between Summit and Prospect. I'm wondering if it could be a little less restrictive. We have, eventually, our grandparents, grandchildren, family members might want to come on a Saturday or Sunday, sit out in the backyard after COVID is over and done with for a couple hours and maybe have a barbecue. I just find that it's 7 to 7, 7 days a week. It seems a bit restrictive. I'm not sure if we're meeting the goals that we want to meet. And I just want to suggest that to you and to the city council. I don't know much about these matters, but I certainly hope that you would consider this. I think it'll be a little bit of a burden on my family members and, friends when they want to come over and visit, they have to go park somewhere else. I have a lot of seniors in my family. I'm a senior myself. Having someone having to walk a couple of blocks, look for parking if it's raining or whatever. I think 7 to 7, 7 days a week is a bit restrictive. I don't know if you agree with me or not, but I just wanted to bring that point up.
Well, you bring up a very good point, Mr. Ponte. I don't know if we even discussed that matter because it was, when it was first discussed, our biggest issue was having people who don't live in the area park their cars there for 3-4 days at a time. And
Yeah,
taking
I agree.
So we kind of have to come up with some kind of balance. So that's something we can discuss again. There's a public session in the next, and of course, there's a public session this is just the introduction of this ordinance. It doesn't go into effect until its adoption 2 weeks from now.
I would agree with you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly don't want people from other places coming. I see people with New York plates for months on end, parking here on a daily basis. And it kind of bugs me. I don't appreciate that.
Become an issue.
I don't think we shouldn't punish ourselves as a result of trying to stop the wrongdoers. There has to be a happy medium. And I think if we restrict it to a certain number of hours a day, 5 days a week, I think that's going to drive 85% of the people that really shouldn't be parking here away.
Yeah,
Well, let's see what happened.
I think you might be right. So we'll have more discussion on this and see if we can come up with a plan. Because you're right. If you have people over, they shouldn't be getting tickets. So
yeah, I have a lot of seniors in my family, people with disabilities. It would be an inconvenience. I mean, I just think there's got to be. And again, I'm not happy when I see people with plates from other states parking here day in and day out, day in and out. And I've seen it. And people who don't live here come in 2 cars, park one, disappear, and then come back 4 days later when it's the alternate side of the street parking, move the car from one side of the street to the other, and then leave and come back 3 or 4 days later. I've seen that happen, but I think if we limit it, to like maybe 3 or 4 hours a day from 7 to 2 or something, Monday through Friday, I think that'll drive 85% of the people that really shouldn't be here. I think it'll drive them away and make life a lot better for the residents, the people that live here.
all right, we're going to see if we come up.
I would certainly thank you for that.
We're going to come up with some kind of plan here. All right.
Thank you. And I want to thank, to my first meeting I ever attended, I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, and everyone in the city council. You seem to be doing a great job, and I'm really, pleased with what I've seen this afternoon. So thank you so very much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anybody else would like to speak?
Yeah, Richard Sorgan. I told him to say that.
Yeah. Nice job, Rick.
Thank you. No, I wasn't even going to speak at this point, but why don't you just, I realize you're up against the time wise. Why don't you say in the regular meeting, everyone got 4 minutes this one time around so you can wrap this up and get on with your business. That's it. Think about it.
Yep. Thank you. Anybody else in the public? Okay, with that, motion to close to the public.
Offer.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
None
But
opposed.
before you guys, close out, I didn't have a chance to say this, but as usual, I just did want to put on the record about the closed session, if I have a second.
Sure.
Just to notice the record as per our usual practice that we did have a closed executive session prior to this this COW meeting. There were a couple of litigation matters that were discussed, specifically the Prestall case and the Greenman case. Those were discussed at the closed executive session. Just want to put that on the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I need a motion to close the executive session.
Offer.
Second,
In favor?
Aye.
aye.
Aye, none opposed. I need a motion to close the council of the whole.
Offer.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
None opposed. Okay, we'll see everybody at the next meeting.
Good night.